to Queensland, Australia. Senator Matt Canavan was on the show last week. That interview went viral here, sir. I got a question. We started the show on Saturday with Dr. Malone, and we doing items about what was happening in Pakistan, about knocking down the SIM cards and the phones and internet service for unvaccinated people. What was happening in France and in Germany with is on fire with these protests, what they call the resistance. But the thing that most shocked our audience was this word out of Australia, which has been one of our oldest and best allies. And people in the United States love the folks in Australia, love the Australian people. This shocking news item that said the military was actually in Sydney to enforce lockdowns. Senator Canavan, can you give us an update on that?
Well, Steve, here in Australia, we're slowly losing our mind over the coronavirus. The coronavirus is a serious risk to our health, but it's doing much more damage to our love of liberty and our political system. That's the real threat to us now. And locking people down their homes is bad enough. And as you say, there are now a few hundred troops being deployed in Sydney, our biggest city here in Australia, making sure that people don't leave their home. They're only allowed to venture 10 kilometres away from their home for buying groceries and exercise, small mercies that the government gives them. And these are rights people should have in a free country. They should not be taken away like this. And this is only a few hundred troops. But the problem is the way countries lose their liberty and lose their freedoms is it happens gradually and then it'll happen suddenly. And before you know it, all of the freedoms that we have cherished here will completely go. We need to stand up against this. We've got to get some kind of balance here back into this debate. I mean, I applaud you. You were on the coronavirus before anyone else. When everyone else was saying, let's go hug people, you were onto it. And now, though, the elite in our community have gone completely the other way and just will not accept any risk. And the idea that we're going to get to zero COVID is not fantastical. It's not going to happen. We've got to learn to live with risk in our lives.
Senator Canavan, the reason that we go to Europe and talk about France and we get people from France, the reason we go to Australia is that they're leading indicators of what's eventually going to happen in America. And people understand there is a trade-off sometimes between individual liberty and a public health crisis. But has the government put forward a set of data and evidence that says you have to go to draconian measures like that? People in Australia are very patriotic like they are in the United States. The problem we have here is on the vaccine hesitant, not the anti-vaccine, but the vaccine hesitant is just, it's all over the map. The information is all over the map. And then we get guys like Dr. Malone on who have dedicated their lives to vaccines, and they kind of walked through and said, hey, this is what we ought to slow this thing down. So what is the public health crisis in Australia that's triggered such a draconian reaction?
The governments have never released full public health advice here. And even if they did, Steve, it would be a dog's breakfast because there's so many double standards. I mean, we're still allowed to play football here. There's still professional football going on because there's a lot of money involved in that, of course. So blokes are allowed to tackle each other and then go into scrums together. But you can't have more than 10 people at a funeral right now. And so the double standards wouldn't stack up against any kind of health advice. There was some modelling leaked yesterday which showed that these virologists reckon that the Sydney lockdowns have saved or stopped 4,000 coronavirus cases. Now that seems high to my mind, but let's take them at that estimate. The Sydney lockdown is costing at least $150 million a day. It's been going on for 35 days. So on their own numbers, on the virologists' own numbers, it's costing this country $1.3 million to save one case of coronavirus. This is out of control, and we're losing all perspective here about what's important and what other things. What is happening, Steve, is we're being run by the laptop class. Right, the class of people that can work on their laptop, that can work wherever they want. Lockdowns are great for them. They get to stay home. They don't have to go on public transport. They still get paid. But those who have to lay bricks for a living, those who have to work at a checkout at a supermarket, they have their wages cut, their liberties restrained, but they don't have any influence over the decisions that are being made.
I want to pivot now. We've had this catastrophe here in the United States. It's going to have massive implication, and nobody wants to touch it. The business press really doesn't want to touch it. They talk about this crackdown on the Chinese tech companies from a Chinese perspective, and yes, that is bad, and we understand that that's going to have a big implication to Lao Beijing. Maybe not as bad as the firewall that exists today that blocks it. But for the United States, it's been catastrophic. $400 billion. I was told by Wall Street guys today, said, Steve, the number is really $1 trillion. And when the venture capital guys get rolled in here, it's going to be worse. And people have warned them about doing business with the Chinese Communist Party. What's your perspective? Australia's been at the tip of the spear. Clive Hamilton had the great book, Silent Invasion. But you guys have seen firsthand of how brutal this transnational criminal organization be in regards to economics. What would your warning be to pension fund managers and, quite frankly, the citizens that have their money in pension funds that are heavily invested in China?
It's not safe to do business in China, Steve. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's just not safe to do business in China. There are massive risks. As you say, you can be at the whim of a government dictate or decision any day of the week. As I discussed last week on your program, over the last year, China has just illegally stopped the trade in Australian coal, in barley, in wine, in seafood, all because they're upset with us over different issues. I don't know how they're allowed to stay in the World Trade Organization when they get away with this kind of conduct. It is against the rules. It's not part of that, and they should be kicked out of that club. But the basic message to any businesses doing any businesses doing business in China is be very careful and get out of there as soon as you can, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And what we've got to do, in my view, in this country, and probably in yours too, but you can comment on that, but we've got to develop better business relationships with countries that respect each other better, countries like Vietnam, countries like India, countries right through Southeast Asia, and of course our friends and allies in Europe and the US as well.
Senator Canavan, thank you very much for coming on today. How did people follow you? You've got a big following over here in the States now as kind of a voice of reason, both on what's happening on the coronavirus, the CCP virus, and also about dealing with the Chinese Communist Party as a ally that's at the very tip of it. You're exactly at the tip of the spear. How can people follow you?
Yeah, we'll get on Twitter. I'm on Matt J. Can, M-A-T-T J. Can on Twitter. Thanks, Steve. Happy to come on anytime.
Glad Aussie rules football still being played while the Army's locking down Sydney. That I can't even get my head around that, but you're correct. That's just because one's got money and power and fame, and the other's just guys laying bricks. So, thank you very much, Senator, for coming on.